Let's dive deeper into this hypothesis. It's claimed that the original builders of the Sphinx belonged to an extremely high-race intelligent beings, and one of their secret chambers contains their accumulated knowledge. Even more astonishing is the story of the Arab historian Masudi, who says the following: "These secret tunnels contain morals of wisdom and achievements in the various arts and sciences, and are hidden so deep that they can remain as notes and guidelines for those who will use them over time." Is all of this even possible, and is it real? If not, why all of them historians talk about the same thing, and why these stories are not at all mentioned or ignored in the modern times that we live in? Herodotus is far from being the only ancient historian and philosopher who spoke of an underworld in Egypt. The 1st century Greek philosopher Strabo also claims to have seen the maze, which he describes as a great palace constructed from a multitude of palaces. As well as its peer, the Roman author Pliny the Elder writes about a puzzling labyrinth made of paths that build an entire underground complex. At about the same time, the Greek historian Diodorus gives a similar description of the labyrinth. When a man enters the sacred place, he will find a temple surrounded by columns 40 of a side. This building has a roof made of single stone carved with panels and richly decorated with excellent paintings. They contain memoirs of each king's homeland, as well as the temples and the sacrifices that were made. All of this skillfully done in drawings of majestic beauty. We do not know if you've heard of the American clairvoyant Edgar Cayce. He was an exceptional person, not by accident called the Sleeping Prophet, because literally told his prophecies in his dream. We know it may sound weird, but stay with us. Cayce made thousands of predictions in the 20th century before his death in 1945 and was quite accurate. He predicts the collapse of the commodity exchange in 1929, World War II, the death of 2 American presidents, the fall of the Soviet Union, and a bunch of other important events. He was so good that a stenographer was hired to stand next to him while he sleeps to record all his predictions during sleep. In his life, he's made about 14,000 predictions, as 12,000 of them have come true and 2,000 are about to happen in the future. From all of them, he's made one small mistake. He once received a letter from France in which a man asked him to see his health, but he was wrong predicting the condition of his twin brother. This is his only mistake. But where is the connection with ancient Egypt? In one of these recorded prophecies, he says that the mystical Hall of Chronicles or Wisdom will be discovered in the 90s under the pole of the Great Sphinx in Giza. He says that the Sphinx is not 4,500 years old as it was accepted back then, but more than 10,000 years old. In the same way, Todd also says that in the underground near the Sphinx, there is a room where objects are hidden which prove that there were advanced civilizations on Earth about 500 million years ago. As compared to them, we're just some children. Todd himself tells that for 500 million years civilizations existed, but about 5.5 million years something catastrophic happened, and it affects our familiar Akashic records. But let's go back to the Sphinx. Another thing that doesn't correspond to what we've been taught and the official information. Here, things are starting to get very strange. And this is the damage to the other structures and monuments for which are supposed to have been built at the same time, carved by sand and wind, which support the thesis that they're about 4,000 years old. But the cracks in the Sphinx look like they were made of water. According to the official science, the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx were built around 4,500 years ago during the time of Cheops and the 4th dynasty, and if you go to the museum in Cairo, they will tell you exactly that. But when this discrepancy was noticed, the Egyptians refused to admit it, and here come the people who dive deeper into this mystery. Between 1991 and 1993, series of studies are made under the direction of Egyptologist John Anthony West and the geologist Robert Schoch. When he learned of all of the controversy, he decided to go see the Sphinx with his own eyes and noticed that indeed the damage of the Sphinx was caused by water. But he also realized that no one wants to hear their opinion, and of course, there was a reason. Most Egyptologists profess Islam, and their sacred book is the Quran, as it says that the creation of the world has begun about 6,000 years ago. And because Muslims are extremely devoted of their faith, they wouldn't accept that, for example, something existed 8 or 10,000 years ago, and they will do their best to defend their faith by persuading everyone that before that time was nothing. For example, the pyramids of the 1st dynasty, which are older than Saqqara, are closed and strictly guarded by the military so that no one can approach them. Why? Because they're more than 6,000 years old. That is why John West left this community and connected with Robert Schoch. He makes a computer analysis and turns out that the Sphinx really has eroded areas caused by water. The computer also calculates that in order to have such cracks, the Sphinx had to be subjected to rainfall for thousands of years, 24 hours a day. How does this sound? Absolutely impossible. This means they calculated that the Sphinx is at least 10 to 15,000 years old. After many disputes, the mass of scientists agree. The official data is that the most ancient civilization is the Sumerian, existed about 3,800 years BC, and that before them existed nothing but savages all over the planet. But this discovery changes everything. The results of their research are shown to the whole world in a 1-hour documentary entitled The Mystery of the Sphinx, which in prime time was watched by more than 30 million people. Surprisingly, the film announces that these studies reveal a series of mysteries, tunnels, and rooms just below the Sphinx. Is this the mystical hole that Casey predicted? Before the answers to these questions are found, the Egyptian authorities, led by Dr. Zahi Hawass, intervened and stopped the project completely. West and Schoch are forced to leave and are banned, and Dr. Hawass defines their findings as American hallucinations. In 1995, thinking the wave had passed, West and Schoch submit a new application to continue research, but they were directly denied, or as West says a little later in front of the New York Times, Zahi Hawass practically blocked us. But then something even more curious happened. In 1996, Hawass gets a new project, and to everyone's surprise, he approves it, bearing in mind that several years ago he had put bonds. Egyptian authorities want to check Sphinx research. However, after a company quite kindly offers and gives $10 million to this project. Then, a short video comes out, of course, in the center of events, and in the spotlight is not just anyone, but Zahi Hawass. His earlier conclusions about American fantasies and hallucinations are gone, and the video shows how he enters one of the underground tunnels through a hole in the Sphinx. And when he's inside, he shares the following. Even Indiana Jones didn't dream of being here. Can you imagine? We are already inside the Sphinx. exactly in this tunnel. It hasn't been opened before. So far, no one knows what's inside, but we will open it for the first time. Of course, the video ends with the most interesting part, and again the questions remain more than the answers. Why did Dr. Howes do that and took advantage of West's discoveries first, and then introduced him as the discoverer and the first to open this entrance? What Egyptologists and Egyptian government are hiding about the mysteries in their own country? Do they worry that it wasn't their people who built the Great Pyramids and the Sphinx? What is the secret room and what's really under the Sphinx?